So I don't actually know if you can like see my whole shirt or not, but let's take a moment to appreciate the shirt. This is from Tea Turtle, and I love every single design that I've ever had from them. They're adorable and they fit really well and it's awesome. But yeah, science. And I bring that up because today's actually an FAQ. And so that totally makes sense. So there's your spoiler or whatever. But again, you know how to read descriptions, so it's never much of a spoiler. But I'm going to tell you what we're talking about in the FAQ in just a minute. But before I do, hello, I am Mrs. Soap and Clay. Let's make stuff. How's it going, Sudsers? Welcome back to the channel. You're at Soap and Clay, where we make all the soapy things, and you are here for day 300 of 365 days of soap, which is cuckoo bananas. 300 days. We have 65 days left. I can do easy maths. That's cool. And yeah, it's wild that we're here, and it is time for an FAQ. For a lot of reasons, but I mean, really, because it's time for an FAQ, not just day 300. And what I said earlier isn't actually true, because I'm not exactly telling you what it is that I'm going to be talking about in the FAQ, because I'm not sure which way I want to go with it. And I'm really just going to sit down and decide that, you know, in the video, because I was originally going to do an FAQ for shit soapers say, and why they're scientifically wrong. And then I'm actually getting a ton of questions about like YouTube stuff right now, and I don't really know that I want to do that, because I'm by no means a subject matter expert at this, because I'm only 300 days new. So I don't really know which way I'm going to go. I have a set of notes for both, and I guess it will all do its thing kind of organically within the video. So let's go to the video and we can all find out together what I decide to let come out of my mouth. Okay, so the Zap Test. Do you or do you not Zap Test? So if you don't know what a Zap Test is, Zap Tests are, you know, kind of exactly what they sound like, right? I mean, I guess it's not really, yeah, it's what it sounds like, totally. So you take your soap, at whatever stage your soap is at. If you have a bar of soap that's in front of you that looks lye heavy, I mean, again, just go watch the video on what does lye heavy soap look like, because I showed you, so that's fun. And so maybe you don't need to stick your tongue on it, but you know, if you want to anyway, it doesn't look quite right, or it's fresh soap, or it's, you know, whatever, and people will take their tongue and, you know, place it on their soap. They will lick their soap, essentially. And if it's lye heavy, you'll get a zap, like you get with, like, I guess, placing your tongue on a battery, which I've also never done. No, not also never done, because I've never placed my tongue on a battery, but I have placed my tongue on a soap. So there's that. So for my answer as to whether or not you Zap Test, I mean, I'm not going to tell you to do it, because, you know, there are other ways to pH test, but I'm also not going to say that you're some sort of terrible, awful person if you do it, because I have, those are beautiful. That's for T-Town Tacoma here, because I have definitely Zap tested soaps many, many times in my life. As far as actually it meaning anything, it really doesn't. Like, Zap tests don't really tell you a whole lot. To that pH testing, it doesn't really tell you a whole lot if you're not if you don't have like the actual pH like tool thing, and even then they're not the most accurate things ever. But a Zap test will tell you whether or not a bar is lye heavy at that exact moment. There's actually interesting information out there though. Kevin Dunn did a chapter in scientific soap making. I'm pretty sure it was in scientific soap making, wherein he had studied previously lye heavy soap that then, like, 6 months later or whatever, he tested again and it was no longer lye heavy. And so Zap tests don't really mean anything. It means at that exact moment there is lye kind of on the surface of the soap, and that can occur for a number of reasons. But that does not mean that your soap is, bad or ruined, or you should like chuck it in the bin. Because again, Zap tests, yeah, sure. I mean, for the experience, I guess do it. I guess, I don't know, but also don't do it. I don't know. So, when can I start selling soap? God, I hate, loathe, and despise when this gets asked and answered on any of the forums, because I don't like how mean the soaping community has gotten and how just like flippant soapers are with each other these days and all of the things. Because when I started this a bajillion years ago, soap makers, like, we held each other up and we helped each other with recipes and we were kind to each other. But now, like, with this thing, I don't know if people are starting to feel like the market is saturated and so they're getting like really resentful of new soap makers, or what. I don't understand that, because the market has always been saturated, but also at the same time there are 7 billion people on the planet, so everyone needs to get clean. There's room for us all. But that question, like, how much research should I do before I start making soap, and or how many batches of soap, or how many, whatever under my belt should I have before I start selling soap? So the majority of people always say, I mean, it's all arbitrary nonsense numbers that they throw out at it, but the consensus seems to be a year. Do a year's worth of research in soap making before you sell soap. Like, don't sell your first batches of soap. And to me, that is complete and total bullshit. You sell your soap when you feel comfortable selling your soap. I don't know what your research process is. I don't know what your brain is, but soaping is not hard in and of itself. So if you feel comfortable and confident and happy with your first batch of soap, sell your first batch of soap. Do the thing. I mean, ultimately, soap making is not hard. Building the business around it, now that's the hard part. So yeah, you can figure that stuff out, and when you feel comfortable doing that, that could be a week, that could be a year. You start selling your soap whenever you feel comfortable selling your soap. There is no set timeline for any of that. And anybody who says differently is just wrong. Just patently wrong. And I really am tired of hearing that. Okay, so the organic question is, yeah, that's debated a whole lot, like a whole lot. And it's a very fascinating one, because the thing is, with organic, that has a lot of different meanings depending on like where your focus lies in life, like where your brain exists, right? Like, to the common person, to like the average person, organic means natural, right? But then you have to actually define natural, which is, I mean, I did an entire FAQ on natural, a couple months ago, so I guess I'm not going to get too terribly deep into that. But natural also has its own meanings, both like a legal meaning or, what the average person would consider natural. So again, in order to define organic as natural, you then have to define natural. And so that becomes, complex for the layperson. But here's the thing. So like, you go to like the grocery store or whatever and you're asking for organic food, right? You shop the organic section. What does that mean to you? That means no pesticides, no GMOs, all of that, right? Okay, fine. Well, but then there are other definitions of like organic, right? So like, in biology, organic is like what is living or what was once living, right? And so, okay, cool. But soap is chemistry. And so we have to look at the definition of organic from a chemist's perspective. And the definition of organic from, a chemist's perspective is containing carbon, right? Like that's the definition, the organic chemistry. There's a whole ass, field of study in chemistry focusing specifically on that. And like there are actually inorganic compounds that go into soap making, right? Like water, for example, contains no carbon. That's not organic, right? The end result of soap is organic because it contains carbon. But I mean, what does that even mean? There are tons of things like methyl alcohol, right? Also organic, contains carbon. But what does that mean? I guess that's my point with all of it. Organic and natural, there are loads of things in the world that are both organic and natural and are poisons. Like, are bad for you. I guess a really good example of that would be like asbestos, right? Asbestos is a natural mineral and it's also really bad for you. So using the words like natural and organic in your soap making from a chemist's perspective, like that doesn't make any sense. Like it means nothing to me. If approaching this, the soaping thing from a chemistry perspective, natural and organic still does not equal good for you. Like that's not, those don't really equate. And so it becomes a hot button issue, I think, depending on where you are in your journey, how you define things based on, your own education, where you come from, your scientific perspective, your woo-woo perspective, your whatever. And so, yeah, it doesn't. So as a result, things get really heavily debated. Another reason why that's a heavily debated, term anyway, is because there are also different like legal things based on where you live in the world as far as what is considered natural or organic or, whatever. And so, I mean, I guess the safe thing to do with organic would be to sort of look at it from the average person's perspective, which is, again, something that, something that is natural, which is fine. But again, there are a lot of things in life that are natural and organic and will kill you. So I wish that we would just get away from all of that completely and maybe find new words, right? Like new words to describe our soaps that are, GMO free and cruelty free and responsibly sourced. I mean, like literally just use those words instead of saying natural or organic, because it just, I don't know, it doesn't smack, right? It doesn't really, that doesn't hit. And I think as a result, that's why we end up with so much confusion in the soaping world and so much debate. There is so much debate about that in the soaping world, which is just really, I don't know. There are a lot of other things that we could debate that actually have more tangible conclusions than organic or natural to that. Or even Cure. Cure is still an interesting one that I'm not getting into in this. I'm not doing it. I've talked about Cure so much with all of the things, but I've talked about it enough, even though all of the bad information continues to exist out there. And that is such a beautiful bar of soap. I love those so much, for sure. But yeah, no, organic, natural, that they're kind of nothing words that are hard to define across the board. So maybe we should start having debates with something that we can, I don't know, maybe work to define. And, so far it's just people still like to yell about the same things and tell people that they're super wrong without any sort of real backing behind telling them that they're super wrong. And that's, you know, weird. But also the soaps that I've been, you know, stamping or whatever, they're super cute and not weird. And that's, yeah, day 300, the FAQ for the 300th day, which is awesome. And there it is, the 300th day of the channel's FAQ. And yeah, that's awesome. I'm still geeking out about the 300 thing. I don't know if we'll do another FAQ in the rest of... We'll probably do another FAQ, right? I think we'll probably do another FAQ. That makes sense because I'd like to space them every 30-ish days apart. So we'll get at least one more, if not two, before the end of the channel. So that's day 300's FAQ. So there you go. If you have any questions that you would like answered or processed or any of the things, send me a line. You can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Drop comments below. That definitely works better than anything else because I tend to not really check my DMs too terribly much on any of my social media platforms. But yes, there's that. And I will answer them and get them on a, you know, an FAQ or, you know, whatever. So for those of you who have joined me multiple days of this 300-day thing, thank you. You are awesome. And for those of you who like signed up halfway through or last week, thank you. You're awesome too. I appreciate you guys being my sudsers. You're amazing. I'm out of here for today. I will see you guys all again tomorrow for another round of soapy fun. Bye.